Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. And blessed are you who are the peacemakers, or you shall be called the children of God. Jeffrey Hunter once played Jesus Christ. His face with kind blue eyes, nice features, and a peaceful feeling that shined like holy light once made millions of people believed they were seeing the Messiah on the big screen. In King of Kings 1961, he didn't just act, he became the character. And because of that, the role locked him into a perfect image, the perfect man, noble and without flaws. But Jeffrey Hunter was not Christ. He was a regular person with flesh and blood, who shook with fear backstage under pressure, who tried hard to hold on to fame as the spotlight faded, and who finally died alone in sad obscurity. Once called Hollywood's golden boy of the 1950s and 60s, acting alongside John Wayne in The Searchers, chosen to play the first captain of the Enterprise in Star Trek, Jeffrey Hunter came very close to greatness. Yet those exact roles, a foster son on an endless search, a movie savior, a captain who got replaced, seemed to hint at his real-life story. Always near the center, there at important moments, but never the one kept aboard when it was time to launch. And so he fell, not from lack of skill, but because Hollywood never waits. The story of Jeffrey Hunter is one of quiet sadness in a shiny but cruel world where the brightest lights may be the ones that burn a person out the fastest. Do you remember him? Before he was Jeffrey Hunter, the big screen actor who once played Christ, he was simply Hank, the only son in the McInnes family living in New Orleans. Born on November 25, 1926, with the full name Henry Herman McInnes Jr., he was the result of a college romance between two young students, Henry Sr. and Edith, at the University of Arkansas. They once dreamed of a steady future, but times changed. Jobs were hard to find, and when Hank was 3, the family left the warm South and moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a place of harsh winters, but also where the dreams of a future star would begin to grow. In Whitefish Bay, Hank stood out early. He wasn't just a good student. He was handsome, friendly, and a natural leader. In high school, he was captain of the football team, class president, and most importantly, a semi-professional child actor. He performed with the North Shore Children's Theatre, acted in summer plays with local groups, and in 1945 earned his first paycheck from the WTMJ radio program, Those Who Serve, where Hank's warm, deep voice touched the hearts of thousands during the leftover cloud of World War II. After finishing high school, Hank signed up for the Navy and trained at the Great Lakes Naval Station. But luck changed once again just before he was supposed to go to Japan. Hank got really sick and was let go in 1946. Coming back to Milwaukee, confused but still determined, he signed up at Northwestern University, where he stepped into the world of theatre for real. At Northwestern, Hank studied speech and took part in many plays, film clubs, and worked closely with David Bradley, who would later direct Julius Caesar. 1949. It was also there that he realized to go far, he had to go to Hollywood. And like many young men of that time, Hank packed his dreams, graduated with honor, and headed straight for California, carrying a nameless but bright ambition. A few years later, the name Hank McInnes would disappear. In its place, Hollywood would know him as Jeffrey Hunter and would follow every step of the young man who once walked the small theater stage under Milwaukee's snow. In California, the promised land of movies, Hank McInnes didn't arrive with dreams of being a star. He was simply a graduate student studying radio and theater at UCLA, doing plays like any other student. But one special evening in 1950, everything changed when he took part in a campus show of Arthur Miller's All My Sons. That night, scouts from Paramount and 20th Century Fox were in the audience. In that young student, they saw something special. Good looks, a well-controlled voice, a clearly movie-like presence, and most importantly, a kindness with depth. Paramount invited Hank for a screen test, but inside problems stopped the contract process. During that time, he met a young actress named Barbara Rush, who would later become his first wife. Not wasting time, Fox quickly stepped in and offered him a 9-year contract starting on June 1st, 1950. The powerful studio head, Darrell F. Zanukafter, seeing Hank's test footage, suggested changing his stage name from Hank McInnes to something more screen-ready, Jeffrey Hunter, and just like that, an unknown student became one of the most wanted newcomers in early 1950s Hollywood. Jeffrey's first role was an uncredited appearance in Julius Caesar 1950, directed by none other than David Bradley, his old friend from Northwestern. Soon after, he was sent to New York to film 14 Hours 1951, a movie that not only helped launch his career, but also marked the screen debut of Grace Kelly. It was the moment Hollywood began to truly notice Hunter. In just a few short years, Jeffrey appeared in a bunch of major big-budget films: Red Skies of Montana, 1952, as a young firefighter; Sailor of the King, 1953, as a brave naval officer; A Kiss Before Dying, 1956, as a scary but charming student-turned-killer. In each role, he wasn't just handsome. He was careful, thoughtful, and not afraid to play difficult characters. Unlike many young actors of the time who were typecast as perfect heroes, Hunter really tried to make his image different from soldier to killer to young men struggling with right and wrong and duty. Along with his growing career, Jeffrey's personal life also entered a new chapter. In late 1950, he married Barbara Rush, an up-and-coming and talented actress. The pair became a dream couple in the news: beautiful, successful, married in Boulder City, Nevada, and moving through the fast-paced world of show business together. But beneath the glamour was a harder truth, which Barbara later admitted: acting kills any sense of being steady. We were working on opposite sides of the country, away from our little boy, and always saying goodbye just after seeing each other again. As the first cracks began to show in their marriage, Jeffrey Hunter was stepping into the peak of his career and into a fate already waiting, with a turn from which there would be no going back. In 1956, Jeffrey Hunter was cast as Martin Pauly in the Western masterpiece The Searchers, directed by the famous John Ford and starring none other than the icon of America, John Wayne. In the film, Hunter played the loyal adopted nephew who quietly went along with the lead character on a years-long quest to rescue a kidnapped niece. His role wasn't that of a typical hero. He wasn't the person who made big decisions or Theon with fiery speeches, but he was the film's moral heart, the one person amid the wild frontier who held on to being human. John Ford didn't choose Jeffrey by accident. The super-tough director once said, "I needed someone who could stand next to John Wayne without being overshadowed, but also without stealing the spotlight. Someone the audience could believe was following not out of weakness, but out of believing." And Hunter delivered through thinking eyes, layers of silence, and a character who made a lasting mark without ever drawing a gun. Right after The Searchers, Hunter's career took off. The next peak came in 1961 when he was cast as Jesus Christ in the religious epic King of Kings, produced by Samuel Bronston. Casting a 33-year-old actor with movie star looks to play the Messiah stirred up arguments across Hollywood. Some even made fun that he looked more like George Chakiris from West Side Story than the Son of God. Yet despite the criticism, Hunter approached the role with rare dedication: sad eyes, a soft-spoken voice, a gentle smile. He made audiences believe they were seeing a Christ not beyond reach, but deeply human. The Vatican, one of the most picky places when it comes to showings of Christ, approved the script before filming began. And when it came out, Hunter's performance got more praise than insults. Still, the results were unavoidable. He became typecast, and from that point forward, Hollywood no longer knew what to do with him. Too holy to play villains, too quiet to fit the shape of the new age action hero, not wanting to become a frozen icon, Hunter turned to television. In 1963, he signed a contract with Warner Brothers and starred in the Western series Temple Houston, based on a real-life lawyer. The show lasted only 20 episodes before being cancelled, though Hunter earned a pretty high salary at the time, $5,000 per episode. Hope for a career comeback came with Star Trek, a strange sci-fi project that few believed in back then. In 1964, he was cast as Captain Christopher Pike in the original pilot, The Cage. It was a serious, deep-thinking character with little patience for humour, perfectly matched with Jeffrey's acting style. But when MB cast for a second pilot, Hunter said no-to returning. He didn't believe the show would work and felt insulted at being asked to start over. It was the worst decision of his career. The role of Pike was later given to Sean Kenny for a few scenes, while the captain's chair went to William Shatner, who became Captain Kirk, and the rest is television history. Star Trek exploded into a worldwide cultural hit. By then, Jeffrey Hunter had moved on to B-movies and international productions, left only to watch from far away like someone who had once stepped aboard the ship, only to turn back just before it took flight. The peak had passed. What followed was no longer the blinding light of fame, but the fading gecko of a once bright time quietly slipping away. Behind the handsome face and the glowing shine of his saintly roles, Jeffrey Hunter was a lonely man wanting connection, yet constantly pulled away by the very career he had chosen. His first marriage to actress Barbara Rush seemed like the perfect Hollywood pairing. Two rising stars, both strongly backed by their studios. They got married in late 1950 in Boulder City, Nevada, a quiet ceremony, yet then news described it as the silver screen's newest dream. 3 years later, they welcomed a son named Christopher, their first joy, and finally their final bond. But love couldn't stand up to the non-stop pace of an acting career. Jeffrey and Barbara were often apart 4 months at a time, working on opposite sides of the country. We'd leave our son with his grandmother, then say goodbye at the airport, not knowing when we'd see each other again, Barbara later remembered in an interview. By 1955, after more than 4 years together and several short-lived separations, they divorced. Still, Barbara always spoke of him with respect and care. He was the most beautiful man I ever knew. Beautiful in spirit as well. 2 years later, Jeffrey married his second wife, Joan Dusty Bartlett, a former model and stunt double for Virginia Leith. He met Dusty while filming A Kiss Before Dying and was right away drawn to her strength, free-spirited nature and love for family. When they married in 1957, Jeffrey adopted her son from a previous relationship, Steele, and together they had 2 more sons, Todd, born 1959, and Scott, born 1962. This was the period when Jeffrey truly lived as a father, and the closest he ever came to the thing he longed for most, a real family. In rare surviving photographs, he's seen playing with his children in the yard or quietly reading a script while Dusty plays the piano. But Hollywood never allows perfection to stay. As his career went down, he began taking roles in foreign films, shooting in Europe and Mexico, spending longer times away from home under growing money and emotional pressure. In 1967, after nearly a decade together, Jeffrey and Dusty divorced. There was no scandal, no public fight, just a quiet announcement. They tried, but time was no longer on their side. After the divorce, Jeffrey withdrew from the public eye, appearing less in the news and rarely going to industry events. It wasn't until early 1969 that he allowed himself to open up again when he met Emily McLaughlin, a longtime actress on the soap General Hospital. They met at a party in Beverly Hills, talked until dawn, and never separated afterward. On February 4, 1969, just 3 months before his death, Jeffrey married Emily in a simple ceremony in Ensenada, Mexico. Emily brought her son, Robert Lansing Jr., to serve as best man, a gesture that marked the beginning of the home Jeffrey had always longed for. But this time, fate gave him no more chances. From gentle Barbara to strong Dusty to the quiet Emily, the 3 women in Jeffrey's life each brought him a piece of what he always looked for. A home, peace, a place to belong, but just like his on-screen roles, always incomplete, always standing just outside the spotlight, Jeffrey Hunter's private life was a journey of love never fully realized. Just weeks after his wedding in November 1968, Jeffrey Hunter flew to Spain to join a low-budget film project titled Viva America, later renamed Cry Chicago, a mafia film about Chicago's underworld that no one expected to be a hit. But he didn't care. At 42, with Hollywood's glow long faded, Jeffrey had only one drive left: to keep acting, to keep existing as an actor, even on distant sets, even for far less than he once earned a decade earlier. That day, during a scene involving a special effects explosion, he was seated in a car rigged to fake gunfire with glass designed to burst outward. But a big technical mistake reversed the blast direction. The glass broke straight into his face, knocking him out on the spot. He was rushed to a local hospital with deep facial cuts, heavy bruising, and a bad brain injury. Emily, his newlywed wife, flew in from the US to care for him. She later told in heartbreak that Jeffrey couldn't speak or move properly. On the flight back to Los Angeles after he left the hospital, he slipped into a state of brain shock, nearly unresponsive. Yet once in the US, doctors found no immediate brain bleeding. They note only a small problem in his neck bones and a concussion, then let him go with the advice to get some rest. But what they didn't know, or didn't want to know, was that Jeffrey Hunter's brain had already begun to fail. The brain damage from the blast wasn't just on the surface. It came in the form of sudden confusion, splitting headaches, unexpected weakness in his arms and legs, and worsening memory gaps. Disturbing symptoms in a man once known for memorizing scripts after a single read, now forced to scan his lines again and again. Through it all, no studio took responsibility. No insurance company admitted the long-term harm, and Hollywood, the same place that once applauded him for playing Christ, turned its back in silence. No reporters covered the accident. No medical bulletins were released. Jeffrey Hunter, a man with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, was now just another sick, unemployed, and forgotten person. He turned to a small apartment in Van Nuys with Emily, living quietly, rarely going out, and trying to get back enough strength to take on a new role. A small glimmer of hope appeared when his former co-star, Jack Elam, reached out, offering him a part in an upcoming series, A Band of Brothers. But Jeffrey never made it to the audition, and he would never set foot on a film set again. That explosion didn't just break the windshield, it broke the entire remainder of Jeffrey Hunter's life. And Hollywood, the very place that had created him, was also the place that quietly watched him fade into darkness, as if he had never existed at all. On the afternoon of May 26, 1969, in a small house nestled in the quiet Van Nuys neighborhood of Los Angeles,